Hey everybody, Austin Parkson here. In the last video I talked about the hypocrisy of Scooby-Doo, and I mentioned Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated several times. So I thought I should give my thoughts on the show. I liked it. I really did. I mean, true, the whole Daphne obviously having a more obvious crush on Fred, and Fred being too, while not having a creepy lust for his van, having a more fascination with traps until he finally got the sense knocked into him. But yeah, besides that, Velma's sarcasticness was hilarious. Shaggy and Scooby was still basically the same. But other than that, it was a good show. I mean, it had a connecting arc throughout the entirety of the series that was set up from the pilot episode and carried it on all the way to the finale. The finale. Okay, this is going to be like a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the show, but so if you don't want to get spoiled, then click off the video, watch the show in its entirety if you want, and then if you want, you can come back and watch the rest of this video. Okay? Okay. Anyway, if you're still here, you've been warned. You've been warned. Speak. Anyway, so throughout in the pilot episode, we see that Velma's family runs the Crystal Cove tourist auction. You know, they give tours to tourists to see, because apparently Crystal Cove, and this is on the sign, is the most hauntedest place on Earth. First off, I thought the gang were from a town called Coolsville. I mean, it is in the live-action show, in a pub named Scooby-Doo, and God knows how other many Scooby-Doo shows, but okay, fine. Creative liberties. And in the episode, we see Velma is leading a group of tourists through a building that has all the monsters that have that originally have been from shows and movies from around the world, but apparently they only happened within the confines of this one freaking town. And when I say all of the past movies and like TV shows, I'm not kidding, because it was the Minor 49er, Space Kook, Captain Cutler, the Phantom Shadows, and you could even see the Lunar Ghost from the live-action movie in the background. So yeah, it pretty much connects all of these events. And later, in a later episode, like far, far later, when Fred and Daphne are looking through it, they see Flim Flam, and it turns out Flim Flam was arrested because he went back to pulling a scam or something, and it went too far, I guess. And they reference the live-action Scooby-Doo movie again, because when Daphne gasps and says, and is about to say something like, she says something like on the line, him, and then Fred cuts her off and said, "No, Daphne, we promise, we all promise we would never speak of him again." And as they walk off, they show the little statuette of Scrappy-Doo. I'm sorry, but people hated Scrappy, and making him the villain in the live-action movie was just dumb. But it's just so funny, because we all have our different opinions of Scrappy. We might agree with someone or not, but still, we have our opinion of him. But to see the fact that these characters have an opinion of Scrappy, and seeing how this universe is technically somewhat coherent with the first live action movie, that is kind of funny. But yeah, but here's my problem with the climax. It technically... Okay, so it starts off being like a sequel series to all the events prior, right? However, with the last episode of them destroying an evil entity that caused all the evil, which means they were the reason for all their friends and families and all these other people running around in Halloween costumes. Since that never happened and Crystal Cove went from being the most happiest place on Earth, that technically not only did it like reboot their reality, but it kind of rebooted the franchise in a way, because really think about this. They had the costumes from all their different encounters, like as previously discussed, the Space Kook, the Phantom Shadows, the Lunar Ghost, Flim Flam from the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, Scrappy-Doo, which was a villain in the first live-action movie, the Minor 49er, the Creeper, etc., etc., etc. So, by destroying the entity and basically wiping its effects from history, which that just doesn't really make any sense, because if you destroyed it in the present, the damage had already been done, so wouldn't they have had to go back in time? But, okay. So yeah, by doing that, by wiping the evil entity's influence from history, which still doesn't make any sense, they caused a reboot of history where they all have normal and productive lives. Like, it's just so weird, because Fred's parents, the original members of Mystery Inc., the Mr. E, Professor Pericles, the DJ lady, I forget her name, and Fred's parents, since they were never influenced, Mr. E, for some reason, is skinny, which, okay. And he's married to the DJ lady, who apparently isn't a DJ, and the corporation Mr. E ran originally is good now. Well, that does make sense. Professor Pericles doesn't have that scar, so... And he's not, criminally insane, so that's good. And Fred's parents were never famous trap masters in this show, so they are like doctors who help bring babies into the world, which okay. And Daphne's siblings aren't super successful. They're less successful than Daphne, and not much was really said about Velma, but apparently she hangs out with Hot Dog Water, which for some reason is... I think that's the only name they gave that character, because she always smells like hot dog water, which is kind of messed up, but I don't know her real name, so I'm just going with that. My apologies, you fictional character. But, yeah, so she hangs out with her, and, they focus more on their academics, and Shaggy is an award-winning chef, which I don't disbelieve, but I also find funny, because he says, and I quote, "Like I'm a slacker." You hear other characters refer to Shaggy as a slacker. You hear of the fan base referring to Shaggy as a slacker, but never really him. And it's kind of funny. But yeah, and apparently Fred's very popular, and the mystery machine, which had to be blown up or something, which they did earlier, but since that was a decoy in a previous episode, it didn't really count for some reason. I think that's why they wanted to do it again, and frank and creepy. But Sorry, my hatred for that movie fluctuates. So, yeah, so the van is intact and is pure white because, you know, they never solved mysteries in this timeline, apparently. But apparently one of the characters from a previous episode knows that what they've done, and he works at a university that they all had to go to like, their parents wanted them to go to like, get their minds off of mysteries. And so he got them enrolled in the school, in his class, even Scooby, which still seems odd to me that a dog would have to go to school, but okay. So they end up giving the Mystery Machine a paint job, and then the Mystery Machine, the, you know, classic paint job, and then they drive off heading towards the university and saying that they're going to solve every mystery along the way. Now, with all that said, and given the fact that this show was coherent to the entire Scooby timeline up to this point, apparently, destroying the evil entity not only caused the reality reboot, but technically the franchise reboot, because none of those mysteries that they solved in the past, that in the original shows and movies went basically all over the world, but in this show it was in the confines of this one town, none of that happened. So that technically means they had to do all that all over again. Let that sink in. So, yeah, I did like the show. Sure, there were some episodes and moments that I didn't really like. Sure, there were some characters I want to just... I don't know. There were things I didn't like about it, but for the most part, like, to fully summarize it, I'd say about 1% I didn't like, and that would be like the whole cringe things and forced things and stuff like that, but the other 99% I loved. I like this show. I would even say I love this show. And it did kind of have a more, like, slightly darker theme. So, yeah. That last part was a little side note. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, the show. I like it. It confused me with the whole ending. Especially considering the part that there wasn't a laugh track anywhere throughout the entirety of the show, but in the final episode, when Scooby says Scooby-Dooby-Doo as they're driving off into the sunset, the laugh track comes out of nowhere, so that kind of does signal that they did restart the franchise. The more I think about this, the more I get a headache. It's a good show. I'm Austin Parkinson. I've got to work on a new outro. I'll see you all next time.